Please welcome back John Troutline with Reno Rennsport. For the next 15 minutes, John and I will be taking your calls. So 823-1920 is that phone number. If you haven't called in yet, go ahead and call in now. We are live. We broadcast from Reno, Nevada. And if you would like to just talk cars with us or you want free advice from the industry's foremost expert, again, that number is 823-1920. Today, John and I will be discussing pre-purchase, pre-sale inspections. The CarBuyer Advisor advocates having any car inspected by a well-qualified facility prior to making any purchase decisions. In our instructional videos available on our website, we teach you how to perform preliminary mechanical and cosmetic inspections. The videos provide walk-around tips on common issues and what to look for while shopping for a car. With this information, you will be capable of ruling out vehicles that are not worthy of taking in for a full pre-purchase inspection. We recommend before purchasing a pre-owned BMW, Porsche, or Mini that you take it to Reno Rennsport. The caveat, before you make any final decisions and give any money or sign any documents. If they find items that need attention on a car, doesn't always mean not to buy it. Some items can be routine and normal, but you'll want to know what they are so you can adjust the purchase price accordingly. Should the inspection turn up a major issue, and often they do, you will be glad you saved yourself the grief by taking it to them first. John, thanks again for being here today.
Morning, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
There may never be a more important conversation we can have with car buyers than the pre-purchase, pre-sale inspections. And I really, John, wanted to give our listeners a thorough idea of pre-purchase what a pre-purchase inspection entails. I mean, most consumers, when they go to look at a car, they look to see if it looks like a well-cared-for car. But too often, some inexpensive cosmetic reconditioning can really disguise a poorly treated vehicle. How long does a thorough inspection take?
You know, if a car comes into our shop for a pre-purchase inspection, it normally takes at least an hour to really go through and, see what the car's made of, see what's been done to it, and see what hasn't been done to it.
Well, and what does it entail? I mean, let's talk a little bit about the pre-purchase inspection and what you do.
You know, if a car comes into the shop for a pre-purchase inspection, one of the first things we're going to do is we're just going to give it a test drive. That's one of the best indications of the overall condition of the car. You can feel if, there's loose suspension components, worn out shocks, struts, if the brakes are warped, if the brakes aren't working properly, if there are lights on the dash. We're going to check all of the windows to make sure all the regulators and motors and everything in the doors. Can be really expensive to repair those things.
And it's not just pressing the switch, seeing if the window goes up and down. You're listening to the regulators to see if they're starting to fail.
You have to listen for noises, creaks, groans, moans, anything that could give an indication that there may be a problem down the road, whether it's short-term or long-term. We want to give the customer an idea of what's really going on with the car, not just a little snapshot.
So a person gets into a car, they're test driving, they check the window goes up and down. You actually take that further. You're really going to take a close look at each of these items while you operate them. But you operate every single button and switch in a car. I mean, cruise controls, headlights.
Everything we can. We're going to go through anything that's in the car. We're going to make sure it works. Or if it doesn't, we're going to see if there's something that we can physically quickly see that's wrong, or at very least let them know there's a problem with it.
Or that there's a potential future problem that could occur on this item. Even if it's working today, it could fail in the future.
Absolutely.
And, you talked about on that test drive, you feeling for some different things. And we have a video on our website that it's about 15, 18 minutes that we really talk in depth about this process of just mechanical, and there's two of them, one mechanical, one cosmetic. But we talk in depth about that driving the car and listening and feeling for things. So you just started to touch on it. You'll listen for things like the engine, for an example. And if you start to find that there's some peculiar or no, because you specialize in Porsche, BMW, and Mini, you get to sense when there's something that's not the same noise that 99 out of 100 other ones have, and then you would take a deeper look. And we were talking earlier about just getting out and putting a stethoscope to the engine if you're hearing engine noises that sound peculiar. Tell me what you're listening for there.
If we hear anything funny, we know these cars inside and out. We know what the windows should sound like. We know what the engine should sound like. Anything that doesn't sound right, we're going to investigate. However that needs to be investigated. Whether it's a newer car and you plug in a scan tool to see if there's an issue there, or if it's a funny noise that we're going to investigate, however that's necessary, whether it's with a stethoscope or any other way. The knowledge that we've acquired by specializing in these cars, we know everything that they should and shouldn't do. And we're going to recognize those things and find out what they are and let the customer know.
Well, and we had mentioned that the videos that we educate them on and give them some of this information, and what we want them to be able to do is to rule out cars that make no sense at all to pay for an inspection on, and then bring one that seems to them to be a genuine car to you for a real professional grade inspection. And I think that we've both seen over the years the people that bring it to you after. And I know right now, I just, the look on both of our faces right now talking just about that. It happens all too often, no matter how hard we try to convince them to bring it to you before.
Mitch, there's nothing worse than when someone comes in for a post-purchase inspection. I always cringe when I see those on the calendar. And for the customer's sake, I hope they got lucky. But, you might as well go down to the casino and play down there. It's about the same type of odds.
And you're right.
If you're doing that. And, I've had people come in, and, this car looked beautiful. It'd been dressed up, detailed, everything in the engine compartment just looked fantastic.
First impression is, they may have actually gotten a nice car.
Just said, man, it's sold. This is a great car. You start listening to the windows. You hear a couple of the regulators are about to go bad. You put it up on the lift. The struts are worn out. There's oil leaks.
Well, thank you. I want to talk to you while you're there about underneath the vehicle, how many things you're looking for, because we talked about this earlier today.
A lot of places will advertise a 25-point check or a 6-point check or whatever it is. That doesn't even come close to looking at everything in the vehicle. Engine isn't 1 point. There's 100 points on the engine that you can check. Just visually and, knowing where to look, knowing what to look for, knowing what different noises are to give the customer an accurate representation of the car they're considering buying.
Well, and take a minute, if you will, and talk about some of the things that you're under there looking at. So you're looking at, you mentioned before, struts and bushings.
There's all different things under the car, but some of the ones that can be
most
troublesome, shocks and struts. A lot of those are really expensive to replace. But on a well-maintained car, everything is going to last longer. That's one of the things we're going to look at. See if as a part is starting to wear out, that customer that is trying to sell the car has kept up on the maintenance of the car, which is going to give everything in the car a longer life. The bushings in the suspension, the ball joints, the wheel bearings. We'll look at the brakes too, the struts, all of those things. As one starts to wear, it'll cause everything else to wear out more quickly.
Well, you mentioned that there's a lot of telltale signs that a professional is aware of, because you're historically familiar with these cars. But when you're under there, you're also, you mentioned this earlier to me, you're looking for newer parts. Explain what that's
exactly.
about.
We're looking to see, if things have been replaced in terms of as maintenance in pairs. Pretty much if you're going to replace one of the control arms because it's worn out, you don't do one side. You do both sides if you're a shop that knows what you're doing. Because if one has 140,000 miles on it and is worn out, the other one's right behind it, whether it's bad right now or not. Anyone that knows what they're doing is going to replace both of those at one time. So if I see one side being replaced on something, I'm going to look for accident damage. I'm going to look for the other side being worn out.
Typically on the accident damage, that was what you were mentioning earlier to me, is that you're going to see a whole bunch of replaced parts on one side of a car. And it's not like they are shiny and brassy and brand new, because there may be some miles on them, but you can tell that they're just not the same aged as the other side of the car. A professional can tell the difference.
Looking underneath, most people would have no clue there's a difference. Looking at a part that's been on a car for 5,000 miles versus one that's been on a car for 100,000 miles. To me, it's night and day. You can tell right away the second that car is up in the air. You go, whoa, what's going on here? And immediately we're going to investigate what happened. And an accident isn't always a bad thing in terms of if the car's been in an accident.
Well, and we talked about that, because it could be just a superficial parking lot ding on a fender.
Problem. We'll see some overspray from a repair, and that's fine. But what we're really looking for is if the car's been in a major collision and not put back together properly. Most collisions are repairable. Even though they may look really bad, it is normally a repairable collision on a car.
But
the problem is when people don't repair them properly and just make them look pretty and put them down the road, and it's not safe anymore.
Well, and you can see some of that, and you were talking earlier about this, is the tire wear can be an indicator of some of that as well. You start looking at and tell them a little bit about what indicator factors there are there.
You know, you'll see inside wear, outside wear, where one side of the tire, whether it's the inside towards the car or the outside away from the car, is bald and the rest of the tire looks new. That can be a sign of suspension problems. If the actual mounting points of the suspension has been moved in an accident, which can be dangerous, it'll cost you more money over time. You can spend thousands of dollars trying to trace these things down that you don't need to spend.
Well, and you mentioned that, you know, cars can be repaired, and that doesn't necessarily make it a bad car, but what you want to do is let your consumer know that it has been and that these parts have been replaced so that they're at least buying with that knowledge, because not everything winds up on Carfax or AutoCheck.
No, a lot of things don't. You know, a lot of people decide to repair it themselves, have a buddy that knows how to spray paint onto a car. You know, a lot of these things happen, and as
not
much
all
as the
shops
industry tries to, you know, get those to Carfax or whoever so that you can make the consumers informed, it doesn't always happen.
And not all shops report, even that do this professionally.
Exactly. And so you really need to have that inspection by someone that knows the vehicle that you're looking at buying and can give you, you know, a truly accurate picture of the car. And just because it has been an accident doesn't necessarily mean it's a good or a bad thing, but you at least have the right to know as a consumer that it has been in an accident, and then hopefully the person selling the car has told you that.
Well, and the thing is you want to know just how severe it was and what other potential problems down the line you may have resulting from them. But it can also, on some of these more collectible, nostalgic cars or higher-end cars, can really significantly affect its resaleability, knowing that there's been prior paint work as well. So you informing them of this can be really, really important. If
you're looking at an older BMW or Porsche, some of the more collectible 911s, 2002s, Bavarias, some of these older cars, you know, if it's advertised as being all original, that's worth a lot of money to a lot of people. And if it has been painted or if it's been damaged and repaired, that significantly affects the value of the car. Not only the body damage, but if it has the original engine, the original carburetors,
matching
the original
numbers,
everything. If it's truly matching numbers, and you need a shop that knows these cars to verify that, because that can make tens of thousands of dollars of difference in the sale price of the vehicle.
And this is stuff that you just don't want to take the seller's word for. You want to pay for the inspection. The inspection, I think people think this is, it's going to cost me $1,000 to get this car inspected. And
not at all.
And a lot of people think that this $2,500 car that I'm buying isn't worth spending the money inspecting. It would just be prohibitive. But tell them a little bit more about that conversation we had.
If you're buying a $2,500 car, a lot of people think it's just not worth, a $100 inspection. They go, well, it's only a $2,500 car. How bad can it be? A lot of times those can be the worst. I've had cars come in that need $5,000 worth of repair, and they paid $2,500 for it. They look like they're going to cry when I tell them that, and you feel terrible, but they didn't bring it in for that pre-purchase inspection.
Well, and we talked about pre-purchase, but there's also a pre-sale inspection, and tell them about there are people that actually want to have their car checked out. They want to sell an honest car.
Exactly.
And what does that look like?
We have customers that typically they've been a customer of ours. We've repaired their car, but they say, hey, you know what? I'm upgrading. I'm whatever they're doing. They're going to sell the car, but I want to make sure before I sell this car that it's a quality product. And even if there is something wrong, I may not fix it, but I'm at least going to let the consumer know, the person that I'm going to try and sell it to, hey, here is the problem with the car. It's going to cost this much to fix, and they're going to be upfront and honest with the person. And that can really make a difference when you're trying to sell a car, that you're willing to do that.
And you can also perform compression and leak down tests for them as well.
Absolutely. We can do those things, and it gives you a representation of what condition the engine is in, aside from noises, clicks, pops, the actual nuts and bolts of it.
And how long its life expectancy could be really charted for. And, if you're a seller selling a car or you're a buyer buying a car, we're suggesting both of you perform these inspections. If you think of it, if you're a seller selling a car and you perform one of these and you offer it to the prospective purchaser, they're going to know that you're authentic about trying to sell a car with their knowledge and that you're not trying to pull a fast one. And it's probably going to make it much easier for you to sell your car. Reno Rennsport means racing in German, but you don't have to learn a foreign language because at Reno Rennsport, they speak your language. You can schedule a pre-purchase or pre-sale inspection by calling 331-4366. Make sure to tell them you heard about them on the radio on the CarBuyer Advisor.